Welcome. This short but informative webinar on Zero Trust. Um, so we still got people coming in, but Zero Trust has been around for quite a while, actually, but only mostly got traction more basically after COVID started because of we had to go through so much change so many remote stuff and provide better security for cloud-based networks. So that's what we're going to talk about. If you guys have questions, let me get that off the screen. If you guys have questions, my name is Todd Lammle, and my email is todd@lamley.com. So instead of writing the whole thing out, if you guys have any questions now or in the future about Zero Trust or the class. Okay, so what is Zero Trust? Zero Trust is nothing necessarily by itself. We've heard of IDLE, OSI, things like that, and how they're used as a strategy or framework or guidebook on how to do, well, IDLEs for software, right? OSI for networking, and Zero Trust for cloud network security, right? So Zero Trust is a security model and a strategy and framework. There's no set way to implement this. Everybody does it differently. I'm going to show you, just demonstrate a little bit of Cloudflare, just a little bit to show you what a little bit we'll do in class. But the other thing is we'll also use Cisco. But there's a lot of different vendors out there. Everyone has their own version of Zero Trust. So we need to understand, and we'll get more back into that in a minute, but we need to understand something that Zero Trust now says we're not going to trust you at all. Even though you VPN, weren't on VPN and you terminated to my router, whatever it was, termination point, and you had the security to get in and you had a token, whatever, we still don't trust you, right? We still don't trust that what you're going to do on the local network, that you have that availability. So Zero Trust is a little bit of work to set up. There's no doubt about it, and I'll show it to you, but it gives you the best security from end to end. Just because someone is on an inside network, which we started doing, 40 years ago, 30 years ago for sure, right? We started having inside and outside networks and things like that. And if you got into the inside network, or let's say you were in sales and you were on the sales floor, or you were in the sales VLAN or the sales network, then you could get it to the server and log in and you can get to the printers and you can do all that stuff. That doesn't happen anymore, not with Zero Trust. So it trusts nothing by default. Okay, so always verify everything. So there's a huge difference from what we've had in the past 40 years of networking. I say 40 years because I've been doing this since 1980, so that was over 40 years ago, right? So I started doing routing, which we'll talk about in a minute, in 88, 89, right? Where Cisco came out. But anyways, we're always going to verify, but we always assume that there's a breach. There's always a breach, and we're never going to assume that anyone is safe or who they say they are. So we verify explicitly and we give, this is what's important, LPA, least privilege access, only give them the rights that they need. Just because they can get to the server doesn't mean they can do everything on that server. So we use CBACs before is what it was called, but now we have more detailed security by packet. Now, why didn't we do this 20 years ago? Why didn't we do this 15 years ago, 25 years ago, whatever? We couldn't. We didn't have the CPU. We didn't have the bandwidth. We just did not have the technology to get this done. It's a lot of overhead, but now we do. So we need to control access to anyone on any network at any time, remote or not. And we need to stop them from having privilege sprawl. And what that means is, they're always going to call and say, I need more access to here, here, and here. And there's nothing wrong with that. We just have to make sure we understand it and just don't keep providing more security, more access, more access, more access until they have everything again. So we have to be very cognizant of what's called privilege sprawl. Now, there are some basic assumptions. The network's assumed to be hostile, inside or out. There's been so many times I don't know any of your backgrounds, but any of you working on networks, you're in here, you worked on some sort of networks or servers or something, that we trusted people when they got to a certain place in our network. or they logged in, or they could VPN in, or they had a two-factor authentication, right? But now it doesn't matter. We'll still assume them to be hostile, and we still will watch everything that happens. So logging is a big deal here. So external and internal threats are always present. So we've always had internal threats, but all the stuff I've been doing, there's been hardly anything that we could do about the internal threats once they in, other than they, hey, you got physical access to floor three. We used to be so dependent on physical location, right? And obviously, we all know that's no longer the case. So network locality isn't sufficient for determining trust. So even if they do go to building three, floor four, whatever, and that's where sales is, doesn't mean we trust anything they do. Every single device, user, and network flow is authenticated and authorized with dynamic policies. So in the class, that's what we do. We learn to configure dynamic policies that change with our traffic, with our data. Now, it's very important to understand this. This boundary, we'll just say 1990, although the boundary was a little bit before that. But if we said 1990 is where a lot of people started working on this, where we had an outside and inside network, and then our point of contention was here, right? This is where we had to monitor, and that's all we had to do, right? We would monitor that, and if they once they got inside, or if they came from the inside, or they drove to the office, were inside, they were good to go. So espionage was a huge issue, right? How many people went into a company and got their Rolodex and sold it to their competitors? A lot. That happened to me. That's why I'm bringing that up. That absolutely happened to me twice. People come in, they do sales, you get your whole list, what the other company wants from. They don't care about anything you do. They want that list, right? And so it's worth a lot of money. So that's why, espionage or whatever, people stealing stuff from the inside is extremely important, and zero trust is a solution for that. Now, I do want to explain something here. This was considered north-south traffic, right? And this is when we had a router. So we had bridges back then for sure, but they did not create separate networks like a router does, right? So anyways, outside, inside, this was our point. Then as things went on, we added more data centers, and then we had some east-west traffic that we had to secure differently. So we did not have as tight of security as we had from outside to inside, because we're just going from server farms or data centers, something like that, something more trusted. Outside users shouldn't be able to get in. So east-west traffic was still secure, but now it's even more. So we don't trust anything from those server farms. So it's important to understand this termination point. Now, zero trust, again, is not a product. It's a strategy. Remember, as I was mentioning IDLE or OSI, right? Zero Trust ZTA, Zero Trust architecture, provides a collection of concepts, ideas, and component relationships. They eliminate the uncertainty in forcing accurate access decisions in information systems and services. So again, never trust, always verify. Risk-based conditional access. Rapid and scalable dynamic policies are absolutely crucial. And identity-based segmentation instead of physical segmentation. We have an identity-based segment. And then again, least privilege. There's another term here, LPP, least privilege principle, where they get just the only amount of rights that they need, nothing more. And then we're going to automate context collection and response using user credentials, workloads, endpoints, network data, and traffic throughput. Okay. Now, there is a roadmap you can go look at. It looks kind of complicated, to be honest with you, but you got to remember that you can choose to do this exactly as you want. There is no set state on how you have to implement zero trust. However, if you say, I want to go to Cloudflare, which is the biggest one in the world and the best, I think, but I don't work for any of these people, so I don't have um, I'm not getting paid by anybody, by Cisco or Cloudflare or any of these people that I do this with. So I don't have a preferred vendor per se. I use Cisco at companies, I use Cloudflare at companies, and VMware has their own. We did that as well. So the point is that you have to understand these. There's 28 steps here, right? So you really probably want to go out there, take a look at it, and you can reorder them and implement it. This is if you want to set this up in phases. So we need to understand our internet traffic. And what do we need to understand from that is what are the users and what are the users going to do? Where are they and where are they trying to get to? We also need to understand what the endpoint devices are and be able to monitor those. And then, of course, we need to DLP, data loss prevention, and logging, very much covered in the class, but we have to understand the networks and the application flow more than anything else. Now, just to define some terms, zero trust, again, security model framework strategy. ZTA, as I've already mentioned, is what you implement, right? So zero trust is the model, framework, and strategy. You implement that in your organization, and that's the zero trust architecture. Now, when we combined those before, up until last year, they had a name thereabouts. Don't quote me on the time. Zero Trust Architecture used to be called Zero Trust Enterprise. That was the name. Now we don't use that term at all because everything's changed to the cloud. So before we had Zero Trust Enterprise, and now we need to understand what SASE is. So everyone's talking about it. But what actually is it? This is the driving force right here. Because we have security. Let me go back here for a minute. We have security, right? Let's say the VPN, they terminate here, or whatever, they're coming from the outside to inside, and we authenticate them and everything. And they come in and they're trusted here, right? Give me one second. We need to make sure this perimeter here is extremely important to us. However, now things have changed because we have our cloud. So our cloud is here. So how do we have security? They're coming from the outside, but we need to get our applications in the cloud. And I know that you're saying, well, my applications aren't in the cloud. They will be, or they are. If you use Office 365, for example, that's an example, right? I do that. Probably everyone does that now. I don't know. But anyways, you got to understand we are now trying to secure this from here, right? We need to make sure our applications are secure and we have the security for in detail and will give least amount of access in the cloud. That's what this is about. That's why zero trust is so important right now. So secure access service edge. Secure Access Service Edge delivers converged network and security as a service capability, including SD-WAN, secure web gateway. CASB is a security we use in Zero Trust. Next generation firewalls. Maybe a lot of you guys already use different ones. There's Palo Alto and Cisco and Juniper. And basically, after we had routers, we added next generation firewalls. We'll talk about that more in a minute. And Zero Trust Network Access, ZTNA. So what we're going to do in class, or what we're going to learn, is the Zero Trust Network Access and how to configure that dynamically. Now, SaaS supports branch office, remote worker, and on-premise secure access use cases. It's delivered as a service and enables zero trust access based on the identity of the device or entity, combined with real-time context and security and compliance policies. Okay, so SaaS is SaaS is the term of the year, I'm going to say, even though we were doing it last year. You get my whole point. This is extremely important for us, whether you're doing zero trust or not. SASE is an important tool. Networking and security have to be part of the same architecture that's delivered from the cloud. So we're basically with SASE taking our network, our cloud base, and adding security on that and delivered it from the cloud. That's what we're trying to do here. It's complicated. All right. So if I go back 25 years, it seems like a long time ago, but it really kind of wasn't. But we've come a long ways. Let's talk about it. So in the 2000s, in the 1990s and 2000s, we had firewalls. We had an IPS type or IDS type environment. But what this is showing here is these are all separate appliances. We provided a lot of securities, but this was where we would just add appliance on top of appliance on top of appliance. Then they came out with UTM or Unified Threat Management, and they combined all these into a single appliance, something like that, 2010-ish. But it didn't do zero trust, and it didn't do least access, and there's so many things it couldn't do. Why? Again, look at the year. We didn't have the bandwidth and the CPU power to be able to get all this done, and the internet throughput, right? We just didn't have it until around here. So 2015 is when I started working with SourceFire, which became part of Cisco, next generation firewall. I like it. I think Cisco's is very good, but a lot of people like Palo Alto, a lot of people like Fortinet. But next generation firewall took all of these and put it into a single appliance too. So that's how this came about. However, this is helpful. My next generation firewall, if I go back here for another second, is helpful here. Put a next generation firewall here, and then I would put one down here, right? So in this environment, I'd have at least two, and that's just a simplistic answer. But the point is that time is it? Um, Next generation firewall worked great in this environment, but what did that give us here? It gave us security here, right? Where do we need security now? Up in the cloud. So there are virtual appliances that we can run in the cloud within AWS and Azure that run next generation firewall virtually. So we did a lot of that, but Zero Trust is a better solution. Okay. And then now we got SASE, right? 2020 plus, where it's just one big cloud network now. There was a site that I had that showed I gotta find that for you guys. Hold on. Anyways, um, now the evolution of SASE, we were protecting infrastructure, distributed denial of service attacks, um, applications, firewalls, and protecting users and data. Um, So the evolution of SASE is taking Anycast. Do we know what Anycast is? So I'm sure you guys probably do. It's different than a broadcast. A broadcast is one to all, right? So an Anycast is one to many, meaning that I could have, let me give you a simplistic example, and then we'll get a bigger one. These are, how about Google, right? 8888 and Cloudflare 1111. The way to get there is through Anycast. In other words, they have different termination points all over the world, and Anycast will find it's defined as one to nearest. That says nearest. Sorry. Anyways, and there are some really big Anycast networks out there, and Google's going to be one of them. Cloudflare's huge. Cloudflare's probably the biggest, but there's a lot of Anycast networks, and it's important to understand that's what SASE lives on, right? On an Anycast. Okay, put our entire global Anycast network in front of yours and use it to build your private network because now, as a matter of fact, like I use Cloudflare for lambda.com, and anywhere in the world where you're at, you're going to connect to the closest metal, right? Closest termination point and have really great connection to the server because it's cached and placed in these multiple locations. It's a pretty amazing technology how it works. But we're going to move from what's called what we had the castle and moat, which was that north-south traffic, right? And unidentified data flowing on the network to a precise and granular state. This is our key. Now, this doesn't sound easy because it's really not. However, we don't have to start from scratch. We can use a particular vendor, Cisco, IBM, Deloitte and Touche, Cloudflare, like, and use their environment, right? So we don't have to start by scratch, but uh, each one of those vendors are going to give us a granular state where nothing is trusted by default. So every packet needs to be associated with an identity and a device posture. These are then used to build comprehensive access and gateway policies and dynamic. So the strategy is continuation of the move to the cloud. We know that's going to happen. And with SaaS, networking and security are now part of the same unified architecture as we already mentioned. Okay. Um, I don't have a lot more I want to share with you about zero trust per se right now. I'm going to talk about a couple other things. And this one right here is things that I do with Cloudflare, with my network. And I will show this. I'm going to demo. We will configure this in class along with Cisco's. But Cloudflare One is our zero trust network access, ZTNA. Secure web gateway. So we can create gateways that anyone can connect up and do SSH to a server or something from anywhere in the world securely. Very cool stuff. Cloud access security broker. That's the CASB. Email security. Remote browser isolation isn't something new, but it's definitely used within zero trust. I did a big job out at a hedge fund in Greenwich, Connecticut, where all the billionaires are. Anyways, and they absolutely had that. You would bring it, you couldn't bring in your laptop, you couldn't bring in your cell phone, right? Hedge funds are pretty, I don't know if any of you guys work with one or have worked with one, but they have to log every packet, right? They cannot make any mistakes. It's pretty crazy. But anyways, um, we would turn on our PC on our desk or whatever it was, and it would come up with a VM, and you'd log in, and it would give you just the apps you could use, and you'd use a browser that was isolated in the cloud. And that's something we can do with Zero Trust with any vendor is do remote browser isolation. What that means is that a customer or student, a customer, whatever, employee comes up and opens a browser and goes to, I don't know, facebook.com or something like that. And they would get some code that could execute on their computer if they go somewhere bad, right? What would happen is this would be executed in a secure virtual window, and no code can be executed because as soon as someone left that browser, if he changed screens or shut down the browser, everything's deleted. So nothing could ever be executed. That's how that works. And it's very, very cool technology. It actually, be honest with you, if any of you have seen it, and I'm sure you have, some of you have, it actually works faster because it's being processed in the cloud and then just the screenshots are being sent to the customer and they don't, all they see is the quick responses. Okay, but we also have network services. So besides Zero Trust, other vendors, they have network services as well as application services. So you can develop your own applications. You could also do rate limiting and load balancing on applications throughout the world. It's very, very cool stuff. So really at the end of the day, they're really what? Content directory networks, right? CDNs, they're providing a service from people's networks to you, right? Content direct, and they cache it for you. So Cloudflare is a huge one, the biggest one probably. There might be bigger ones, I don't know, but anyway, CDNs are very popular. But we also have to be careful about our DNS, don't we? So DNS is extremely important that we secure that, so people don't go to the wrong sites or redirected to the wrong places. So we would do something like that. Just speaking of Cloudflare real quick, they have data centers in 320 cities. I can't kind of keep up with this slide. I keep updating it all the time. But I need you to understand something. This is why they're the biggest. They have two data centers in every city. So they have 320 cities, means they have 640 data centers, and they have more than that now. So 95% of the population of Earth is within 50 milliseconds to a termination point. 13,000 interconnects, 280 terabyte capacity. Okay, so very, very robust network. But I'm not just saying, hey, use Cloudflare. I'm not. I'm just using them as an example because I use them all the time. Disintegration of the traditional network parameter. Now, remember, I talked about this with that north-south traffic, right? It looks something like this. The only difference is we're going to have um, our data center here. So here's our east-west traffic, our data centers, VPN service, terminations, our wide area network. So our network parameter looks like this, right? And then we have the infrastructure as a service. We also have software as a service, and so on. And we have these different data centers. So we basically started breaking the parameter quite a few years, I don't know how long ago, a long time ago, uh, when we came up with virtual networking. So that's been a decade or more. Okay. Now, the SaaS architecture, though, just to understand completely what it is and what we're going to be studying is we first get network services, right? We have firewalls, routing, WAN, quality of service, load balancing for our network, same thing for our applications. And then we have security services, secure web gateway, cloud access security broker. Zero Trust Network Access, data loss prevention, remote browser isolation, and then we have email security as well. So these are a SaaS cloud platform that vendors use, right? So in our applications, they're going to be software as a service, um, and infrastructure as a service, and so on. And then servers, databases, storage, networks, all connecting in from the SaaS cloud into the network. And then the SaaS cloud platform is managing the security of all this along with the network. And that's the whole thing. It's an integrated quality user experience using Zero Trust. Okay, I think that's about it. Single vendor, single network, SASE. Hold on. Um, Yeah, so Cloudflare, so this doesn't have to be Cloudflare, Anycast network, right? So remember our Anycast, like we have all of this in here. Every service is on every server. So no matter where you are on the internet, the closest vendor you talk to will have this service. And then data centers would do cloud, in this case, a daemon, Cloudflare daemon. We'll connect other ways from Cisco and so on and IBM. But we also have device agents. I'm going to show you that. We also have something called a warp device agent on Cloudflare, and I use this on my phone. It's a free supplicant, and it connects to the closest Cloudflare termination point. So if I'm on my phone and I walk to an airport and I connect up to the internet, it's all my Warp client is automatically going to connect me securely to a termination point for Cloudflare. It's very, very cool stuff. Okay, what I want to show you now is just a few more minutes of your time, guys. I want to show you. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so again, I will do more vendors in class. I'm just showing you Cloudflare right now, but there's multiple vendors we'll learn about. So when I get the home, so when I create users within Cloudflare for Zero Trust, we get a server. So let's say you came to class, you would get this server. Here's my server right here. So I can't go to the server yet. We have to set up DNS. You have to do some things to get this thing working. But everyone gets a domain, right? And then what we want to do is click on this, and then we get some information about the DNS, the email, and so on about the server. So we're going to go through this and understand how to manage the server, and then how do I do zero trust? Okay, now in zero trust here, there's a couple different ways. Here's browser isolation, email security. Those aren't new, it's a new location. But anyways, under network, so here's my networks, right? And I'm going to create tunnels. So remember that Cloudflare D when I was showing you that. See, yeah, right here, right? This is a tunnel. I want to show you guys something. Notice that tunnel. Um, we're going to build a Linux box and just create a tunnel on it. It's no big deal. It creates connections to two data centers. So if you notice here, each out of these tunnels, we have two connections to two data centers. So four connections altogether. That's some redundancy. And that's with every connection. So that's pretty amazing. Anyways, so we have our tunnels there. We're going to work on that. What was the other? Oh, access. So access, we have applications, policies, rule groups. So here's where I add an application on my server and give access to it by creating a policy. When I create the policy, I'll create rule groups on who can be permitted by that policy. The policy will then take that rule group and say, okay, and you could use something like, at acme.com, right? And say anyone with that email address, right, has access to this policy, then can be authorized to the application. So it's important that we understand how to do this, and we will spend a lot of time doing this, as long as browser isolation as well. Pretty fun stuff. Okay, so I know that was a quick and beautiful update to Zero Trust and an introduction of SASE, right? Now, this is a website they set up for training camp where you're at now, and this is going to give information about the 2-day course. It's relatively inexpensive, so when I looked at it, I was kind of surprised, but it's only, I think, $6.95. So for 2 days. So we're going to do 2 days, about 5 hours a day, right? Something like that. But you still have access to the labs after that. Okay. Does anyone have any zero trust questions at this moment? I don't know how I would see if you did. I don't know Zoom that well. Let's see. Uh, share more, share chat. Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't see the chat till just now. Thanks for sharing this. Thanks, Donna. Hi, Donna. Will the president be able to take notes? Uh, you mean my PowerPoint slides, Scott? I can just put them in here. I don't know what Twin Gate is. So if it's zero trust, then the answer would be yes. They're all very similar. Scott, are you talking about the slides I was just using? Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay. Let me see if I can load them up here. Give me one second. I might be able to just put them in that meeting chat. I don't know. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, it's uploading. There you go. Thank you, Randy. I tried to keep it high level, guys. I hope you know that, right? I want to get you excited about the possible class. And you guys, if you don't do this class, it's fine. What I want you to be excited about is in your environment, especially if you're a network person or if you're an application services person, you need to start studying zero trust, right? We need to understand zero trust and how it works. Okay, I know that was short and sweet. I didn't want to overwhelm you guys. Just give you kind of an overview of the class, and you can see in here what lab, if you look back in here, what the labs will be and things like that. Okay, thank you, Scott. Uh, oh, Sophos. Oh, I didn't know that, but I bet they do. But we haven't implemented. Ah, so Sophos is their own? They have their own? Oh, sure. Um, they have here's the link to the class info. Cloudflare is I hate to sit here and say, God, I love Cloudflare, blah blah blah, because I don't work for Cloudflare, right? I do more work for Cisco than Cloudflare, but I really love Cloudflare as a company. Cloudflare as a company is a great company to do as a consultant, but they also have a phenomenal product, right? It's really really good, and they're just kind of chill, you know. So unlike Cisco, and I can complain about Cisco since I've been working on them since 1990. That gives me a right. Yes, it can be that. It can, yes, most likely, Dominic, that's what mine is. Yes. Cisco's um there's a lot of things I like for Cisco, mostly their next generation firewall. I think Cloudflare is the best zero trust. I think Cisco has these are my personal opinions, and Cisco has the best next generation firewall. But you got there's people that'll say, no, Palo Alto's the best, and Cisco's like people fight over next generation firewall. It's pretty funny. But anyways, I find it the most secure. But again, my personal opinions, and you'll hear more about those in class. All right, any other like Fortinet? A lot of people like Fortinet. It's much easier to configure and implement, Bob. I totally agree. It can't get quite as detailed as Cisco, and that's it. Palo Alto is a little bit harder to implement than Fortinet. So I know a lot of people, Zscaler, oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I knew Zscaler had one. I had just hadn't seen it yet. I'm waiting for F5 to come out with one. Anyways, I would love to, if you guys have any more questions, I'm here for them. Referencing 26, yep. Do the zero trust products walk you through these steps? Not really. You have to, um, oh, they do. Oh, Don, are you saying that F5 has it? Is that what, were you saying yes to F5? One second, Sebastian. Okay, she might have left. I'm not sure, Sebastian. You go to that website and take a look at it, but um, I don't. I think it's if you want to sit down and build an enterprise, right, for your thing. So I haven't really been through them all that much. I go through them and look at them, and you can implement them in any way that you want, right? So I don't think any company's going to tell you how to do it. So, but you know, for if I come in here, I'm going to come in here and do exactly this. I'm going to create a rule group on who can use different policies within different applications. That's my main goal when I walk into a customer. And to be able to do that, I have to create tunnels and logs and cache speed and data loss prevention and email security and browser isolation and stuff like that. But these are where the important pieces are. Of course, we have some gateway stuff where firewall policies, for example, things like that. Okay. All right. Anything else? That was fun. I liked it. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I think you know that I did. Yeah, you're welcome. Yep, I'm loving the technology. All right, thanks, guys. I know a lot of people got here late, but this was recorded. Where the recording is, I have no idea. Right, so talk to training camp. Thanks. Thank you, Edward. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Jeff. Dominic. Thank you. Appreciate all you guys. I don't even know how many people were in here. Oh, quite a few. Gabe, Brandon. Cool. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, guys. Ooh. Oh.